My name's Mina Anwar and I'm the director of a brand new play here at the Customs House called OUR LAYGATE. And it's a new play by first-time theatre maker Anne Ahmed. And it's brilliant. I've been working, helping her to shape the play for about 4.5 months. And it's been a fabulous foray into understanding her life as she lived in Laygate. It's set in 1968 and her family. And also there's other source material of people that lived in that area. And the history of that area is that in 68, they were going to demolish the houses. The Housing Act came in, fair housing, that said that any houses that had outside toilets and no kitchens were not fit for purpose and they were going to be demolished. So the people that lived in that area were going to get new houses from the council. And that is the kind of premise of it. And it's about her, Maggie Ibrahim, and her children and her husband who's been away at sea, and he's a Yemeni sailor who's a cook on the ships. And I think what's really fascinating about the story is understanding how those women and children live their life when their husbands were away, and sometimes they were away for like 2 years at a time, which is why in this play there's 2 years between the ages of the kids, because they came back and they'd go, and not knowing when they go back, when they were coming back, if they were coming back. And how those women and children, I think what was really important to Anne is knowing that even though all of that stuff was going on and there was like a bigger picture of the seafaring life, that they lived in this multicultural area that had, just the number of people that lived there, you know, there was Somalis, Arabs, there was Mauritians, there was English, Scottish. There were so many people that lived in that area during the 60s. And they all came from different, lots of them fought for the war, so they sailed the seas on behalf of the British and then settled here in South Shields as well, and they had to be near a port. So Laygate, for some of them, was where they rocked up and then made their homes and made their lives. And it's a really fascinating story to me. The story in itself, I mean, there's so many stories, and we're pinpointing one, which is Anne's life, her connections to her memories, and also just it's a fiction based on lots of things that might have happened in that time. The life they lived, where those kids were running around, the women were dealing with stuff, how they dealt with, their neighbours. There's the Somali cafe owner, and the bigger stories of the boarding houses. And it's just trying to create a community and a snapshot and a 2-week event, really. And that's where this play is set. And it's been an interesting dramaturgical conundrum, in a way, to reimagine it for the stage. I think it's really important that we see different narratives on the stage. And I don't think people of dual heritage, particularly, have had their narratives as strongly as this in a play that is actually about that. And you just don't see it. And also I think it's really important who tells those stories. So it's really important to us to be completely authentic with casting, and so that we have people who identified with that narrative, so that they could bring some of themselves to the play as well. And even though it's a period piece, there's a sensibility in which someone can live knowing how they identify in the world, having parents from 2 different cultures, how they just live in the world, how they attack it, how they experience it, and then bring that into the play. And I think we just don't see it, and especially to me seems quite unique up here in the Northeast to have a play with this kind of diversity of cast, and this is a lot of women again in this play. And I just think it's like from Hamilton, there's that line, who tells your story? I think it's really important who tells the story, and this is written by a woman, Anne, whose father was, half Yemeni, her mum was Scottish, And the authenticity at which she wants to bring this story to the fore, I think I think it's just really relevant right now in the zeitgeist we're in now, to understand that there's an authenticity to a story, and let's just put it on and see how brave we can be by putting that story on the stage. This play it's like a lot of period drama. You know, there's always, what's important is that people watch it and there's something in it that can resonate with you or you reflect on. And to me, what was interesting about helping Anne to reimagine this play is that it is a lot about we see a lot about like the refugee stories, or people that are kind of come to a place where they feel like whether they're going to make their home here, how do they feel like they belong, how do we deal with the other, how do we deal with otherness, how do we deal with understanding the changing faces of our communities, how do we come together, and who is your support network. And Laygate, having talked to Anne, sharing months talking to her about it, that's what it seemed like to her, is that they lived in like a world in a bubble. She's put in the play, was a world in a bubble. And I think that just knowing that support network was there for you, and I think after the pandemic and where we've been, we're so closely tied together in our communities, we have been over the last year, that we seem to know everybody in it. And I think this might resonate there, thinking who helped you when you needed something, who was there for you, how would you feel as if they were to leave, or you weren't going to be their neighbours anymore. And I think just in a general, you know, dealing with racism and intolerance and prejudice, there's so many things in this play. It'll either make you feel, some of it will make you uncomfortable, and it's on purpose. You know, there's a layer of this play that is like looking in on it as well. Looking in on, there's like a balance of who is looking at that place and seeing their streets change. How do they try to keep control of what they understand? And I think it's just really, I just think some of it, it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you feel uncomfortable. I hope it makes you feel uncomfortable in a way that you might think about it yourself and think, do I know people like that? Or whereas I ever a person like that? Am I like that somewhere in my life? Inadvertently don't know that I'm like that. And I think there's a lot of layers in there. I don't even know if I know half of the layers that are in this play right now. That's what's very, I like to be surprised by it, and I'm surprised by it every day. Because also it's now coming from Anne to me, to now the actors, because then it becomes such a collaborative process that the actors then bring things that you don't even realise that are there, and that's a true collaboration, I think. I think what's so special about the Customs House is Ray's ability as well to spot that there's first-time theatre makers or first-time directors, like I was a first-time director, professional director when I came here in 2016, and to give that person a platform for their story. And it's very brave. Anne is a first-time writer of a play, first-time theatre maker, and to put her with someone who, you know, I mean, I'm from Indian background, so there's certain parallels in which, you know, I was born in 1969, there's like parallels at which you live in a northern town that had, from a working class family, first generation immigrants, those types of things. But I think the Customs House is so, I just think that, especially where we've been after the pandemic, to be as brave as putting first-time theatre makers, first-time, some of these actors have never been here, you know, and never worked here. I just think that's really extraordinary. I think, and the Customs House, I don't know, sometimes, I always think the Customs House makes world-class shows. And I think because it's not one of the bigger theatres, it gets overlooked. But actually, some of the bravery at which the work happens in this space at the Customs House is worthy of anyone travelling here to see it. It does. I would go and I just think that's really important, and I think the Customs House sometimes gets overlooked by some of the bigger theatres, and yet does the most explorative, brave work, I think, of anywhere in the Northeast. It's an interesting story because it does have this life inside where you know that people are just getting on with life. There's lots of like dark things happening, there's lots of like changes happening in their lives, about to move house, what is like the future holds, but they get on with it, they try to find like the joy from each other, and almost like how do they support each other during this time. But also there's some deeper layers about, you know, try to put in the deeper layers about the seafaring life. You know, what was really fascinating learning about this story is also the darker stories of some of the Yemeni sailors' lives, the Somali sailors' lives, where the life at sea had its own dangers, you know, had its own traumas, and how those people then become in the fabric of this community, and what facade do they have, what masks do they have, and what darkness it actually hides. And I think we tried to put some of that in. There's some real like soul searching going on as well, you know, not giving you any spoilers, but there is some real heartfelt, you know, people coming together and really just that thing of cherishing each other, nurturing each other, being vulnerable with each other, and then helping each other through. So there's some real moments of joy, and there's some real moments of lightness, but there's some really beautiful soul-searching scenes in there as well. So I just think it's like almost like a play of two halves, really. And I think it's got hopefully, when we get there, which will be soon, it'll have, you know, all of that like light and shade for everyone. And there's a lot of local references. You know, it's really important to keep all local references that people like understand, they hear it, they see it in the set, and that they feel like this play is either for them because they were from here and they understand it and they're part of, you know, may know where Laygate is, or, you know, if you never knew anything about Laygate, you might come away going, what an extraordinary, interesting place that was. Set right there in the Northeast in '68, a place feels like, you know, the world in a bubble. That's what it was. Yeah, amazing.